Hello everyone. So there's not many videos about this on the internet, so I'll be showing you guys how to remove a alternator, a Marelli alternator on a classic Fiat 500, and I'm quite sure this will be the same for pretty much all classic Fiat 500s. My model year is a 1971 Fiat 500, and it does have a 650cc engine. But again, I'm sure this will be the same for the 499cc and 500cc engines. So going forward, I did, to save space and removal of components, I disconnected this rod going from the throttle linkage to the carburetor. There's a little tab over here that you can push, if you can see my mouse, push up. It pushes up, then you can remove the linkage from the carburetor itself. As you can see here, this hole where the linkage was. After that, there's a little E-clip over here. I removed it very carefully by holding two flathead screwdrivers at either end, holding one end of the E-clip and pushing the other end with the other flathead screwdriver, and the E-clip came loose very carefully so it doesn't fling out and go God knows where. I got that out, and when you do that, this entire throttle linkage will slide off of this shaft here, and then you can loosen the spring off of either the fan cover or the actual linkage itself. Just by twisting it, it'll come right off. And then I pushed it off to the side. I put it on top of the transmission over there. After that, I removed the air cleaner and the filter. As you can see here, the air cleaner is just held on by 3 tabs. One here, one on the back, and one over here on the back. 3 of them you just push off and then loosen there's a tube that goes from the carburetor here to the air cleaner. All you need to do is just twist it and it comes right off. As you can see from this picture as well, after that is complete, you will start to remove these bolts right here of this fan cover. Bolts in the front and in the back, they are, at least in my case, 11 millimeters. The nut and the bolt, 11 millimeters. Take them out, organize them safely. I like to organize my bolts in little cups and in plastic bags, and I like to write to the actual components of such nuts and bolts and whatever I remove on the plastic bags. You will do that. Getting to these front ones is quite easy. Getting to the ones in the rear is a tiny bit more tricky. You just got to make sure that when you loosen them, you do not drop the washer, the nut, or the bolt. And this entire process, for these bolts in the front and for the rear, I used a 5-inch or 4-inch extension with 11 millimeter 3/8 shallow socket. And for the one on the rear over here, I did use a longer extension because my wrench couldn't really fit to ratchet in this area here. It's a little tight behind this cover because there wasn't much space back here to actually use my ratcheting wrench. I used an extension to actually reach the nut from the top of this air cleaner cover here. But for all the rest of the nuts and bolts, you just need a short extension. They're not too hard to get to. And then there are 10 millimeter bolts, 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. you can remove right here from the side of the head, and then 3 13mm bolts. 1, 2, 3. Sorry, this fuel line is blocking the way, but there's one right down here. I'm sure you would see it on your own vehicle. Another 13 right here, and this 10mm right here you do not need to remove. It is a part of the actual assembly, this lower assembly of the fan cover. So then once those bolts are removed, this top cover for the fan should come right out. It may take a little bit of maneuvering to get it off of the head of the engine and off of this lower cover here, and then you have to turn it just a little bit so then there's enough space to take it out of the engine compartment. But once you do that, it'll come right out, and then you can remove this large tube here connecting to the lower fan cover. Once you have that out of the way, it is optional. I took the nut off. This is a 19mm nut. A shallow socket is able to reach this nut. You don't necessarily need a deep socket. So I removed it. It was quite tight, actually. I couldn't quite get it loose with a regular ratcheting wrench with its length. I had to use a 3/8 breaker bar, as you can see from this video. So you can see here I used my 5" or 4" extension with my 1" extension connected to the 19mm shallow socket, and it fits right over this 19mm nut. Doing that, because there's a swivel end on this breaker bar, you get just enough space to break the nut loose if you're careful enough to break it loose, and then you could put a regular ratcheting wrench on the extensions to remove the nut. After that, you can start loosening the alternator. There's 4 13mm bolts holding the alternator to the side of the engine block here. And be careful with this bolt right here. It was actually a little difficult to get to. I was able to remove it with just enough space, but the stud was kind of blocking the way. I was still able to remove it though, but it is quite difficult getting a socket and a wrench on this nut right here. There's just not enough space. The alternator blocks it. You would need either a very thin socket or a very thin headed wrench. But I was able to remove it with a crescent wrench. But I was able to remove it with my regular 13mm crescent wrench, the 12-point end. And there's also 2 10mm nuts holding the alternator to the lower fan cover. One right here that I already removed prior to taking this photo, and one on the bottom of the alternator here. Remove those, and then I removed the pulley from the alternator. It was, I believe, a 4mm Allen wrench, just a regular old Allen wrench, and those Allen bolts were quite tight on the flange holding the pulley to the alternator. So what I did was I put the Allen wrench on the Allen bolt, and I cracked the bolts loose by tapping the end of the Allen wrench with my hammer. That's really the only reason you need a hammer for this job, just to crack them loose with the hammer. Once you get those bolts off, the pulley should just come right off. I should say this pulley is different to other Fiat 500s depending on what you have. This pulley right here is an aluminum pulley. I've seen other Fiat 500s have other different types of pulleys and designs and bolt patterns, but it should be the same. So after you get the pulley off, and the belt is loose, it should come right off. If your belt is excessively tight, then it would give you a little bit of problems to actually remove it. But for me, it came off pretty good. As you can see here, this picture with the nut off of the shaft going through the fan, you should be able to just remove the alternator from where it is on the engine, but it was giving me a little problems. I couldn't quite remove the alternator the way it is with this fan cover on the engine, so it was easy enough for me at least. I just decided to remove the fan cover from the engine itself. To do that, all you need to do is remove this 13mm bolt right here, this 13, and you should have this 13 removed. It's the same on the other side of the engine, next to this tube, next to where the tube goes for air intake. There's another 13mm, as you can see right there, and right below it at the bottom of the engine near the oil pan, there's a 10mm bolt. Once you remove those guys, the lower fan cover should come right off. Again, this is all to your choice. If possible, you could remove the alternator without removing the lower fan cover.
Take the last bolt out, and the whole thing should just come right off.
As you can see from this video, the whole alternator and lower fan cover assembly comes right out. Just needs a bit of maneuvering and rotating within the engine bay, and it should come right out once you clear the engine.
There we go.
As you can see here, the whole assembly comes right out. And once you have that out, it should look like this. As you can see here, that 10mm holding the bottom of the lower fan cover, the bolt hole is right here. That 13 next to where the air tube would go for the lower cover is right here. And once you have this whole assembly out, you can just wiggle the alternator and it should pop right off of the fan itself. And make sure when you're reinstalling it to put these two keyways in place and tighten the 19mm nut that holds the alternator to the fan quite tight. I recommend using blue Loctite. Do not use red Loctite. Use blue Loctite and a lock washer. Keep it on there real well. You don't want that coming off.